Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
If you like paranormal, true crime, cryptids, or anything else weird, check out the Ouch Was That a Ghost podcast brought to you by your host Liz. You can find Ouch Was That a Ghost on Spotify, Apple, or any other audio platform. New episodes drop every Thursday.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
Okay, alright, so you're good here. Okay. So yeah, no, I just wanted to apologize for the editing here for the last episode here. I was just gonna try to just get another conversation with Kayrene here. So thanks for joining back up.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. So when we talked about with Paul there and everything, what did you hear for the hiking portions of it?
Well, I mean, I heard everything clearly, and it was pretty fascinating to hear Paul's experience and just his recollection of that time. And he just seemed to have some pretty vivid memories and experiences with Kenley. And then that portion of it when, from my perspective of, Kenley leaving to go to Ontario, and then to hear of that, like, kind of difficult journey that would have been for him to meet up with Paul, and then for that experience to have with Paul, which sounded really cool. Like, I didn't realize, like, that they spoke at all these different universities, and just, where they stayed and the hospitality they received, but then, like, the challenges that they faced, I thought was all very, very interesting. It just adds to the mystery, I guess, or of Kenley's life, that he had all of these experiences, because him and his friend Mike had gone down to Central America maybe like about a year later, and they had a lot of, very interesting experiences down there as well, and traveled all through Belize and Guatemala and Mexico. So, he traveled this world, or from Canada from one side to the other, and a lot of North America and Central America. And then the hard part is that he goes to Wolfville and made this, in his mind, a responsible decision to start on his education. And that's the difficult part, is that something happened to him in Nova Scotia, where everyone would have felt very safe, and that nothing, would happen to you, and especially at Acadia.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Wolfville's a small town too. It's like, was it just strictly colleges? Like, it's just a college town there, right? Like, you get everybody
Pretty
going
much.
for college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then just a lot of the details, like the weekend before he disappeared, still, like, you had asked me when we were communicating about some different details, like the last time that he was seen. And, I know the last time I saw him, which was 4:00 on the Sunday.
Mhm.
And then after that, it becomes, very convoluted, because there were 2 years that Todd Barker had said he saw him on the Monday night in his room. So that was always the last sighting of Kenley, which of course is always the most important part of a missing person, is to know the timeline. And then that was changed 2 years later that, oh, it was Sunday night that I saw him. So then the Tom Gordon sightings on the Monday became the last time Kenley was seen. So none of this ever felt very clear, to us. It wasn't me who saw him last because there were these other sightings, but nobody else saw him, and I didn't see him in class on Monday morning. But then if someone tells you they saw him, then you have to go by that because you don't assume there's, anything going on. So it still doesn't sit well, even, 32 years later, because these details are, still a mystery.
Yeah, no, it's a long time and still waiting for answers too.
Yeah,
like even with Tom there, like him being the last person to see him, like I know there was a few other people that saw him like earlier on and seemed like but he was doing laundry or something, but I mean they had laundry facilities back at the towers there.
yeah, but that wasn't on the Monday. That
No,
would have been
like
a couple of
4 days
days
earlier.
before. Yeah, so
Yeah, it was before the party too. That I think that was before the party even started too.
yeah, there were so definitely, kind of perplexing things that happened, and that where a friend of ours, Chris, saw him on the Thursday before he disappeared, and that was, didn't really seem to make sense either. And then, Kenley had that tower party on the Friday night, and then he's not accounted for on the Saturday night that anyone has really gone on record. Toby May said that she saw him at her house and she was 100% sure that it was Kenley. She said that in the documentary, which my heart dropped a mile, when she said that, because, is that where he was on the Saturday night? And was it Sunday night or Monday or a different day? So that's all of that needs to be,
Verified.
investigated properly. I mean, Ron did a great job with the film and took it as far as he could, but there has to be some steps taken forward with the police that just take this and run with it, because there's a lot of information there. To me, it's not a cold case because this family came forward in 2016, and what family in Nova Scotia would come forward and implicate a relative and not be looking for the reward, the $150,000 reward offered by the Department of Justice. So they weren't interested in the reward. It was just weighing on their mind. So, to me, it's like, it's never been taken up by the RCMP or any of the investigators. And then there's a lot of things that don't line up with that either.
No. And even with all that, they could have easily have done that for the reward money, right? Like they just straight up told you guys, like this was what we've heard and we wanted to try to help you with that, right?
Yeah. But I think that it too closely could implicate them, and the risk of being maybe caught up in the actual crime that happened might be too much of a risk. So I think, people have to be properly questioned, and then, a lot of the truth can come out. And that's not what happened. Like, we did as much as we could back in 2016, but we had to hand it over at some point to the RCMP. And that's when I was saying in the last time we spoke that it was the double cousin of the suspect who was put in charge of the case, which we were never informed of until the fall of 2022. So.
Did you think the whole the family and the law enforcement thing had something to maybe do with that, or kind of like a hush hush kind of thing maybe? Or
Yes, I mean, my gut, it tells me that. Do I have clear proof? No, but it's just seems like there's a lot of things that they haven't been upfront about, and going back to that time, which was just brutally hard. Like, this would have been the kind of June and July and going forward in 2016 when this tip came forward, because we didn't know anything. We weren't told anything. We were told that a family came forward and that they suspected in 1992 that their nephew was involved in the disappearance of Kenley. So that's how everything kind of unfolded from there, but it just never went anywhere. It was never fully investigated properly.
Yeah, that's not like, even with the whole, like, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't really investigated properly too. Even like at the beginning, like how they treated it as like a missing person, right? Just because Kenley traveled, they're like, oh, well, maybe he just effed off and whatever, and that was it, right? Like they didn't really look too hard into it.
Yeah,
Like,
but
no,
if it was a relative of someone very important in the town, then that explains why, it was treated the way it was treated. So it was, Kenley wouldn't have been seen as a local. He would have just been seen as someone disposable. And if something went down, then in my opinion, they are protecting their own and not looking out for Kenley in this case. Because to me, it's like it can be the only explanation, And the part I go back to all the time is like, why would this family come forward and put themselves in this position? It's because they can't sleep at night. These family members did the right thing, tried to do the right thing and come forward, but there's still too much history with covering up what could have happened.
yeah, no, yeah, it's just, it seems like every other time too. Like you guys get a lead, and then it's just totally debunked, or it's not looked into. Like, I'm not really sure where, like, how, even like up on the mountain there too, like when they investigated that, like, okay, when the dog went over to, like, to that spot where he had a point of interest and whatever, he was sniffing around, like, the canine guy had to go down and then, like, try to get around that area, correct? Like, he had to find a way down to get around there, or?
Yeah, well, that whole time, which was about a year ago, the actual search was done in May, the initial search, and Ron was actually there, and so they had Doug, who had Rifle, who was the dog, which a lot of this obviously was not in the film, or a lot of people might not have seen. There was some stuff in the paper last summer, but that these bear caves, right? So it's all in this area that is up behind Wolfville. And it's always been kind of a suspect area, and it's actually been indicated by a lot of psychics as well. But you can just never quite like find it, right? Like it's just this enigma. And so they spent 2 full days in the woods, searching the woods and this whole area, which was indicated the bear caves. And there was nothing the first day, and you're just so hopeful, right? You're just waiting and waiting, and it's like, that's what it's like. It's just this like waiting game. It always seems like. And then it was like this miracle that Rifle indicated on the second day. And they did all of their procedures, which was all of the training that they've done. I mean, the dog is certified, has been certified in the States. These are amazing people, Doug and Kathy. And they were both there. They both confirmed that there was an indication of human remains. So that would have been like near the end of May, kind of like mid to late May. And so then I flew home, and I mean, I can't describe to you the feeling of, seeing this area and like it just being to a T described, like, as I mentioned with psychics, and like what that, like multiple psychics have explained, like that Kenley is near water. He can hear water, that it's near a cliff. There's a drop off. There's, that the body was moved, that it was put over the edge, and that's exactly where, that Rifle indicated. So at the time we met with the investigators in charge, and we were just, I mean, you could tell, not taken seriously whatsoever with this, but there was something there. I think Our investigator at the time, Ben, who was, and is a good guy, there was something that was clicking with him, and he did agree to put the wheels in motion to get a further and a deeper search done, which would have been sanctioned by the RCMP. So I think it was like 12 to 13 weeks go by, and, it did get lined up in August of last year, and it was in combination with like a forensic anthropologist who was from UMB. And so all of this was all lined up, and they got there on the one day. They have the bus, they have the forensic, bus or whatever, everything is set up. And literally by the next day, like everything was closed up and they were gone. And they had this like whole team of people. So there was like, I literally thought it would take like a week or two, for them to search this area.
And go through everything.
Yeah, and like pull it apart and all of that. And it was just like boom, boom, boom. My mom actually drove down there and stayed the night. So it was just this incredibly disappointing because the expectations were so high and just so hopeful that we could find remains. So just incredibly disappointing, but like also disappointing in that like we just didn't feel like it was given the time, like let's give some space here. Everyone's here. Why not just use that time to even give it like one extra day? So it wasn't even like a 24-hour time period of which they invested the resources that they did a lot to this follow-up search where Rifle had found the indication of human remains back in May. So you're just left again, like just devastated. Like it takes weeks, for a person to be able to get through all of this. And, everyone was just so hopeful to be able to find something, whether it was a tooth or, I think, just a zipper or anything, from his clothing or a piece of clothing. And then it was just, as I said, just extremely disappointing and devastating.
Yeah, like for them to do what was it, like just a couple days for like a search, and they're like, no, well, there's no, what was it, no human remains were found here or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they really searched too hard. I mean, they could have done something a little more, but
Yeah. Yeah. Like they could have spent some more time or even re-interviewed some of the local people because, if you put yourself, which I always think you put yourself in a situation and you think about like, hey, if I knew something like a little sketchy, right? Like maybe, grew up in Cape Breton and it's like, oh, if you hear of something like you're not going to run to the police, right? You're not going to, but if someone asked you, you're going to tell the truth. So there might be someone out there that is like, you know what? I'm not going to go tell them, but if they come to my door and ask me, I'm going to tell them.
mhm.
And, in essentially that is sort of a little bit of how they found this area it was like indicated that this is where the bear caves are because a lot of times like people who aren't from that area won't know the woods in that, that location. But
No, it would have to be like somebody that knew the area, like that grew up in Wolfville, like Wolfville of all places, like even like
yeah,
all the other places that Kenley had traveled, nothing happened. Like maybe like he got into like a little scuffle or something here and there, but I mean like nothing too major like this, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's the big part is in like the suspect, from what the family had said was, and even like a lot of the stuff that came out after the film, where there was a police officer who was on the Wolfville police when Kenley disappeared. And he came forward and indicated like how basically unglued this person was. That like he got into a physical altercation with him, who was,
Oh,
Jason
wow.
at the time in 1992. But it's just sort of one of those things where, that needs to be further investigated. Like, is anyone out there? Can anyone just follow up on this and like go through and have the list of people who should be interviewed and do that work to follow up on it and maybe someone is there that does have the knowledge that would tell the truth if they were asked.
Well, yeah, and then they could try to go off of that and figure out what happened, piece things together, and get this thing
Yeah.
solved, right?
Yeah.
Well, even
But
what was it there when your dad went up to grab, when Alan went up to grab his, Kenley's, like, boxes and stuff from his dorm, like, none of that stuff was, like, itemized or anything, like, he just, what was it, just
oh no.
boxes?
Oh yeah, it's just fully open door, like could open it with a butter knife, like there was never a list of everything. And you and I had talked about the backpack and,
Mm-hmm.
where Kirsten had mentioned in the film, which is the first time I had heard that she saw the backpack like 100% in his room and that she went in his room, I'm like, really? But why was she in his room?
See,
Where,
that didn't make sense to me either.
yeah, like that didn't make sense because if Tom saw him on Monday, then why, like, really just over a couple days, like, you wouldn't be going into someone's room, to, to kind of like check things out or whatever. And it's that whole part seemed like she was so sure, on the backpack. Well, then was someone in his room between the Sunday when I saw him and the Wednesday? And who was in his room? Because we were immediately allowed in his room and the RA had key and, so it's like, what exactly happened over those few days?
Yeah, and it's
It's
hard to tell with that too. I mean, it's always going to be suspicions and just
yeah,
answers that you're never going to have. And
yeah.
it's, well, not at this moment, you know what I mean? But like, it's going to take more investigating to do it. And with the RCMP now, like, is this whole like investigation on the mountain, like, is that just totally closed now, or like, are they
We
still?
haven't been told that it's closed. As I had mentioned, like, we don't actually have an investigator, and my mom has asked to speak with Troy Allen basically to, you know, uh, give him a piece of her mind, and that we were never told that he was related. We did, and the other thing back in 2016, the other like brutal part of this is we were left in the dark when
Oh,
the uncle of the suspect was allowed to see all of the files and the report that our private investigator provided to the RCMP. We didn't see it
oh no.
for like 6 months later. They were allowed to go look at it and read it because his uncle was retired RCMP. So they let them go in and read it when we had no idea who they were. We had like absolutely we were completely in the dark.
They didn't even
And we
tell you.
had to basically threaten, get to the level of like threatening, like, that we need this report because my mom paid for that report. And they were the ones that got to see it before we did.
Oh, that's not right at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just so many injustices and no justice for Kenley,
No,
in all of this. Like, that's the biggest part is, even calling the Department of Justice line, for anything, it's like we're not even met with any any type
just
of response or whatever. And this is not necessarily recently, but like in previous years. And
no, even those phone numbers that your mom called in the documentary too. Like she called like what, like every hour, and nobody answered at all.
yeah,
Like, and they give these numbers for people to call to report stuff, and like it seems most of this shit just got brushed aside, kind of thing too.
yeah.
But
So, I mean, it's just one of those things where, like maybe somebody will have a moment and they will have a come to Jesus and, but it's probably maybe two people, maybe three people that know where his remains are. And a lot of the people that are within that family tried to bring the story forward, told their truth as much as they could tell. And, but they're probably not privy to the exact, detailed happenings of whatever happened on that either Sunday night or Monday or whenever this all went down, which we don't really know. So,
No, and even when like what was it, the Monday that you didn't see him in class or what have you, like you never really thought anything of it. Like, okay, well, my brother's not here, kind of thing. I'll see him later, right?
Oh
And that's
yeah. Yeah, you don't automatic, especially like in Wolfville at university, and he's not the type to skip class. Like, so it was weird on that Monday when we didn't have chemistry together, but we would see each other. And you just start to kind of like, oh, that's weird, right? You're like, that's weird, that's odd. And then we did have class on the Tuesday morning, but he wasn't in class, our calculus class together. And so then and then you just sort of, but I think I had mentioned the last time I talked to you where I sort of thought I saw his light on
mhm.
up in tower, and I had counted up, like the floors and all that, and I was like, oh, well, his light's on, but it was the wrong light, and I'm, not sure that would make a difference, but because I have a feeling everything had already gone down by then. And then there was a lot of, stonewalling, which would have been happening by the police immediately. But then like by the Wednesday, it's like, oh my God, like this, you just don't jump to like your brother got murdered or your brother is like a missing person,
No,
that's not your automatic. Like, it's like, oh, that's weird. And then you start to build, and then it's just like this insane like rush of every emotion you have once it all unfolds.
yeah, and no, like even yeah, that's not. It's not something that you normally think of too. And then like a couple days go by, and you're just like, well, shit, like where's he at, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it, just even going from like Wolfville too, like that's not even a. I haven't been there in a while, but like as far as I know, like it's not that big of a town either. Like it's you got your college, your main street up and back. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. This one
Is
Main
it the one
Street.
way goes to Halifax, and the other way is what New Minas, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, like I know it's been some time since that happened. Like a lot of people's memories could be foggy too, but like uh, you'd think that you would really kind of remember something or like the exact time or what have you, right? Like when something shook down or the last moment you remember seeing somebody, like you think that would stick with you at some
Yeah.
point. Like it would just that would crucial piece of evidence would be like, oh, okay, well he went down this way. That's the last time I seen him, and he had this on and that on, right? But
Yeah.
uh,
It's hard to say, but I just know that at this point we're, the fate of finding out what happened and, just being able to find his remains, and, you have to find your own peace with it for sure.
well,
But
yeah,
it's still like you, as just like a human to human, like I just hope that like, and I mean, these people are never going to be charged with anything because, you know,
so
we
much
already
time has
know
passed.
yeah, like we already know like there's going to be no action taken by the police. Like it could be something like an anonymous tip to you, to me, just let us know where his remains are, where we can look and just find, even if it was a tooth or, his bones or anything. And it's just something that is meaningful to our family, and that we would like to, just be able to find his remains and at least
Well,
have that peace of mind.
well, yeah, and that way you could like you guys could have your little send off for Kenley, your funeral or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And then like yeah, but what was the other thing here? When Paul and when we were talking with Paul here, because I know there was a little bit of audio issue with that. There was a part when he mentioned that Kenley went to like Montreal, or he was coming from Montreal to go hiking there. He got in a little encounter as well. I'm not sure if anybody. Well, some of that was choppy, but wasn't too bad. But just wanted to get your thoughts on that too. Like,
I kind of believe in, like there's certain feelings like people have that, like Kenley obviously had that feeling multiple times, right? Like throughout his journey with the 2 years, especially like after he graduated from Sarek in Port Hawkesbury. So, even just the night that he left on his motorcycle, he stayed in Amherst, and he went on to Rivière-du-Loup in Quebec and made his way all the way across to Banff. And I'm sure he was at times frightened for his life. Like, it's not like he was like a careless person or someone that was like just an adrenaline junkie or anything. Like,
Mhm.
he would have planned, and he always like obviously hoped for the best, and he had like the best outcome. But I'm sure there were probably multiple times he was scared for his life. And for Paul to share that, I think was just like one experience that Kenley would have had, where he's like in over his head, that many of us have had,
Mhm.
where you're like, oh shit, like I don't feel this doesn't feel right. And as I had mentioned, like I just feel like that probably did happen with Kenley in the situation in Wolfville at Acadia. Was, oh my God, I'm screwed. And then you have that moment where you realize like you're in really big trouble. And a lot of times people don't come out of those situations, so they can't speak to the feelings of it. But I think
Mhm.
within all of us, we've had those close calls, and we just like afterwards are like, oh wow, that was close. Or you survived something. I mean, we've all survived a lot of things, but unfortunately I just don't think Kenley survived that situation. But I think the fact that of course he had these experiences, in those two
Mhm.
years, and you don't put yourself in these so many situations that you don't come out of it. It's just like the part that it was in Wolfville at Acadia is really just that baffling part of it all.
Yeah, no, especially like when you went, well, you were gone for the weekend, you came back, the whole party, everything like that. But the Saturday when it's like nobody had any sighting of him or whatever, like maybe he was just hungover, he hung out in his dorm or what have you, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, I could totally see that, right? Like,
Yeah, but you'd still see someone on the floor. You'd have to eat, and
well, yeah, you'd have to get
but
up and
maybe you'd
yeah.
hang out there all day, and he never came out of his room. But I mean, they don't have bathrooms in the room, and
Oh, there's just like a
you
place to
know,
sleep and okay,
yeah. But if nobody had any sighting of him on that Saturday either, like
well then
confirmed,
like
um,
a confirmed sighting.
yeah. So that might be where some of the the groundwork was laid for whatever happened later. Whoever maybe he met that Saturday. But
Hmm.
you know,
Do you remember?
I it's just like very shocking, like that in less than 2 weeks he could meet someone that would take his life and cover it up. And that this outcome, this radical crazy outcome, could be possible. But then that's where like I never would be thinking that unless like literally the family came forward and said it, in 2016, like we think our nephew was responsible for, involved in Kenley's that missing boy's, disappearance. So, who would come forward and say that unless they really knew it?
Well, and especially after such a long time too. Like this
Yeah.
was 2016, you said.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe because of like the whole documentary being made that this kind of made them feel guilty and then they just kind of try to maybe smooth
No.
not smooth things over, but to let you know to try to get
No. I
this
think they're
thing.
unrelated, because at that time the documentary had sort of course, like was picking up steam, and like with Ron was doing a lot of filming and all of that. But like it really wasn't like he was very, very private with it. It wasn't like he was doing a lot of media, or there was like a little bit in there about doing the Kickstarter back in 2013.
Hmm.
So I think that it was probably just weighing heavy. I mean, whatever sparked the two aunts and the uncle to come forward at that time, like whatever, there was probably something that happened in their life that they had to make it right, try to make it right. And then I just feel like it was stonewalled and covered up again by the RCMP, in that the double cousin and that the retired RCMP Uncle Mike was able to go look at the
file.
reports, before we were, and make their decisions, on the polygraph and all of that stuff. So,
like, you think that you guys would have been the first to see any like documentation or anything? Why would they just not some random person? Yeah, that's not right at all.
Yeah, when you look at stuff like this, like you think about what would you do, right? And these people, you're no different. Like most people have similar, kind of experiences and instincts and all that. So the only explanation is you're protecting your own, which a lot of people will go to any
means.
Yeah, to cover up, protect your own, cover your family, cover your reputation, cover, all of that stuff up. So it's like they have to live with that. So that's the only thing that I have, it's like I sleep well at night in that I'm not trying to cover anything up. And, for them, like if they are and they know, then that is a life sentence in itself.
Yeah. No, and it's just brutal how everything like shook down too. Like you guys try to get a lead, and then it just time passes, and then it's like okay, and then time passes, and like I'm trying to think like how can you guys get the mountain search back up? Like how would you guys go about doing that again?
Well, I mean, it would take. I think it has to be generated from the RCMP. I know Doug and Kathy, who were the, with the canine with rifle, and amazing people, and just like they were very cooperative with the RCMP. So it would be something that would need to be organized, because like that's what we've always found is we can take it so far, but we need the resources of the RCMP. Like we need someone in there. I just have a feeling Kenley's file has this like special stamp on it that is like, you don't like some special, I don't know what, don't touch this file, don't do anything with this file, just destroy anything in this file if there's any life to it. And it's sort of like there's been moments where it's trying to come to the surface, and then it's snuffed out, completely. And that's where I think it's just like goes back into that cover up, where that is so powerful to continue that like it just isn't seeing the light of day, and it's like, will his remains see the light of day? And that is, the part that whoever it is, whether it is in the RCMP and someone knows something, or whether the family, it's like that's living on their conscience. So that part they have to show the light of day on their conscience. But that's where I feel like with the search, it has to be generated. Like we tried, Ron was there. He was like boots on the ground, like with the search, and had like blood, sweat, and tears to try to get that going. And, it happened, and then they found something, and then, it's just like another dead end. So it's got to be generated from someone within the RCMP that wants to make it right.
So it just has to be law enforcement to kind of get this ball rolling again.
Well, I mean, we could follow the same path that we did last year, where it was basically like a private search, and then the dog found remains, and then we waited 13 weeks for the RCMP to set it up, and then it was over within 24 hours. So we could do that again and again and again, and like beat our heads against the wall with it, But if
it
the
seems
proper people take it, which are the RCMP, because they're the ones with the resources and really a lot of the approvals, right? Permissions and approvals to be on land and like to actually, to do it properly.
There was like two parts to that whole thing. There was the mountain search, and then there was the chicken farm there, the Kenny chicken farm. So when you guys were told about, that was the same family, right? Like that was just different, like an uncle or something, and then the other side of the family. believe I'm right on that.
Yeah, that's all. Like the chicken pit is the Kenny farm. And, I always wondered, or even this came up through different kind of like psychic sort of sources, but also within that family, talking about the chicken pit, like that's where I put a body, there was, and now that whole thing is bulldozed over, that whole area. The barn is gone. It's, which makes it almost impossible to search. So it's coincidental, right? Since 2016, everything's bulldozed over and covered up, the barn torn down. That was actually in that area back in 2017 and got a tour of that whole farm or whatever. And then, but it's like, what if, I always envision like if something went down on the farm, which is really close to campus, you know, somebody loses their temper or says the wrong thing, sees something that they shouldn't have seen, whether Kenley saw something he shouldn't have saw or whatever happened, and maybe he was put in the chicken pit, right? Maybe he was put there initially, and then it's like, if the family or the father or whatever finds out, it's like, hey, why get the body off our land, and then they're put back into the mountains. Kenley's body, could he have been moved? Right? So like all of that timeline, that Sunday night to Monday, did something like that go down? And maybe, with Randy, the uncle in the film, maybe he wasn't directly part of it, but maybe he was part of some of the moving of the body or disposing of the body or whatever might have gone down.
Yeah, and it just sucks that you can't really pinpoint this shit either.
Yeah, unless he comes forward, which in the film, Ron, tried to pull that out, like even with hypnosis and all of that. But, it's like the person just has to come forward and tell the truth on that, one way or the other.
It's just wicked hard to crack.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the person in your family either. They were willing to take it so far, but they're still like the familial ties in any family are so strong that you don't indicate your own family. That
No.
protective, like instinct or whatever is super strong, and it's like you still need to live with yourself. So that's just where I hope.
Yeah, no, and there's going to be like a huge amount of guilt, like that's eating away at somebody,
Yeah.
and it just fucking sucks that it's not eating away at them fast enough to get all this situated and worked out
Yeah.
and fucking give you guys some answers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But like neither of my parents are interested in, prosecuting or going through any type of, charges or, any of that stuff. I mean, they're at a point in their lives where, it's just we want that peace of mind, like for Kenley's remains, to be found. And whether we know the full story of how exactly it happened, we don't necessarily expect that. But to have that confirmation, he's still, like my husband always says, like he's still gone, like he's never coming back. And so there, like I realize that, but and it does kind of, allow you to live your life or whatever, like nothing's going to change that. But it is still, a missing person, and it's like that unsettling feeling, you just can't, like it's hard to accept without knowing that it was confirmed that we found his remains.
Yeah, because you're always going to have that inside of you, like it's never going to go away. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Don't get
always
me
one
wrong, I want to know what happened. Goodness, I would want to know.
Well, you and Kenley were very close, like even like we're growing up and everything,
Yeah.
and obviously, well, you guys were family, right? But I mean, like you guys were closer than most. You'd always do
Yeah.
everything together, and
Yeah. It's just like the one person you expect to be in your life, for the rest of your life, your sibling, and
yeah,
it's
no, and I've lost a lot of friends and family and everything. I get it. It sucks. And yeah, like to have that feeling of like never knowing, but always wondering. Yeah. No, and I'm sorry for like that whole feeling and everything, man. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couple.
We just hope that we will find out. I mean, I fully expect to at this point it's like even for Ron to do the film Missing Kenley, like that was a miracle. The way that he
Yeah.
found us.
Yeah.
A lot of different miraculous things have happened throughout the years, and so it's still like I'm still hopeful like that a miracle can still happen, and maybe something will take another turn with this story. And I realize I'm not in control of any of this stuff, no matter. That's one thing I've learned for sure, is like it has its own journey, and it will come to the surface when it's good and ready.
Well, yeah. Usually everything that's done in the dark comes to the light, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah.
And yeah, no, I thought the whole like even with the interview and everything, like it had that little portion of Paul there or whatever, but I found that really didn't get enough credit. So I mean, like I did message a few other people in this, but I got the brush off kind of thing, but not a big deal. But it's cool to explore the different avenues to try to like look into a case and try to get every detail that you can in this, right? And yeah, it was really cool to have Paul come on and then you join to talk as well, right?
Yeah.
But then we just got the shitty end of the stick with the audio, so
yeah. Yeah, that's life, right?
yeah, day in, day out.
Yeah. Speaking to Paul was really cool. He's, oh my goodness, very very cool guy, and it was really interesting talking to him and just hearing his voice. He sounds so kind and
Yeah, no,
heartfelt, and
he really is. Like we've been messaging off and on here. Like we started like emailing and then we got on WhatsApp and whatever, right? So, and this is why I kind of wanted to run by like everything I could. Like I know you're busy and I've been busy too, but like I really appreciate going back and forth and maybe like giving me the info that I needed and to pinpoint like stuff that I had wrong and everything. Just a fact check and everything, right? Sorry about that there. My computer just restarted, so I kind of got booted. So we just joined back up here. We're going to talk about just on like Paul's part in the documentary, how there wasn't really much of a part about him in the documentary. There was, but it wasn't long enough. But did you want to touch base on that?
well, Ron had wanted to go visit Paul. I think Paul lives in Patagonia in South America, from what I gathered. It's pretty cool. But with the way that the filming went with the documentary, which Ron raised funds with the Kickstarter in 2013, and then sort of was following this path, trying to piece together everything regarding the case and regarding finding Kenley, and potentially solving the case. And then the tip came forward in 2016, which was the family, and that was just like jolted the entire case, and the documentary, of course, as well. So I think that became like more of a focal point, was like focusing more on his disappearance, which of course Paul did not have any part of whatsoever, but he got to know Kenley in this cool way, which was really interesting to hear about, and I really enjoyed. Would love to hear more from him on that. With his experience with Kenley, and Kenley was 18 years old back in that early 1991. So yeah, that was really neat to be able to hear more from Paul about that time.
Yeah, no, I can definitely line that up too. I can see I messaged him earlier there because I sent him the link to that second episode that we did, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh wow, did I ever miss something? It was like a big pause, and then there was like a couple things that seemed like it overlapped. I'm like, how did I even miss that?
But
I think that, and didn't he say that, did he say that they met like Sting or
yeah, they
something
went
like,
to they went to Sting had this concert or whatever, and they all like met up afterwards and everything.
yeah,
Because they
yeah,
had one of his guys had a restaurant or a bar or something that they all went to.
yeah, yeah. And then, with all of the speaking engagements and just, having, I remember Kenley, telling me about it. But a lot of times, like, he didn't come home. He went straight to British Columbia from Louisiana. So after he finished that, and then he went, directly to planting trees, and, he turned 19, and there was he called my dad, and, he said, oh, I wasn't even, he bought beer, when he turned 19. He's like, I wasn't even carded, They didn't ask for my ID, and he was like all upset that they didn't ask for it. He would have looked very young, but
Just
anyway, and then he
happy.
went in, yeah, and into the outback. I think it was like Prince George, British Columbia for 2 full weeks, and just lived out that summer just trying to plant trees in those brutal conditions.
Yeah, no, planting trees isn't an easy task, and
Yeah,
like you said last night, like you have your weather, your mosquitoes, you have everything that's gonna come at you, and all in all, like you're digging holes, plant trees, and do everything else that you're supposed to do, right?
yeah,
And like he worked hard with all the tree planting and everything else. Like even like during like his time like playing hockey and everything, like he would have to practice hard and everything doing that. And with college too, like was he like did you guys plan to go to college together?
not
Like
really. I mean, I was planning to go to Acadia, and then the year he did come home. I guess it would have been after he went to Central America, to Belize and Guatemala, and he was home for a while in the winter of '92. So, and then before he went back out west to plant trees again.
mhm,
And I remember, like telling him I was going to Acadia and, all that stuff. And so I think that just sort of planted a seed for him that he would go there as well. And, that's a hard pill to swallow right there, because, it's just like you make these choices in your life, and some of them really take you down a path that is irreversibly, changes your life, and
yeah, you
you can't fix it.
no, and on you didn't know anything was gonna happen either, right? Like
Yeah.
I know what you mean though. It's that feeling that's sticking
Yeah.
with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I get that a lot of the times too. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, you
But
realize like this decision, you go down that fork in the road, and then, you keep going, or a tree branch or whatever analogy, and then, you keep going that way, and then, it's like sometimes things lead you down this path that it's very, very small things, like I still remember the day I told him I was going to Acadia, and we were sitting in my mom's house in Glendale in Cape Breton, and and then he's making his decisions based on that too. So, yeah, I wish he never went to Acadia. I'll tell you that much. I wish I never went to Acadia.
yeah, no,
I wish I
that's
went to St. FX.
yeah,
But
yeah, no. His grades and everything, like he was going to classes and everything quite regular, and he had good grades and everything. I would imagine.
oh yeah, I mean we had only gone to class for a week. And he had been out of school, out of like any type of form, institutionalized school or whatever, for 2 years. So he knew he'd have to get back into it, but he was majoring in biology, I was majoring in chemistry. We had that calculus class together, and we were gonna, survive, get through that semester,
Hmm.
and, just sort of make, like, just do the best that we could. And that was always one good thing. We were both like really, pretty good students or whatever in high school. And we were always like really hard workers and very resilient. Like, you sort of like always push through, right? And that was the plan. And, there's just no way he would have picked up and left without telling us. There's just, to me, that's not even a possibility in the whole
case.
big picture of this. Yeah.
No, because you guys were close, and like I assume he always like called your parents just to talk or whatever, like your mom, and he would always call her. I would assume your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all kept in touch, and there was really no point, even in the craziness of those 2 years, that we had that feeling of like, oh gosh, like we haven't heard from him. Where is he? Like, he did keep us in, the loop or whatever, as much as he could.
No, and like, yeah, like if he was going somewhere, I'm like he'd be like, all right, well, I'll be back this date, and if I see you before then, whatever, right? But
Yeah.
like, I'm sure he would always tell you, like, if he was heading out or, well, to go tree planting and all that, like, he'd always be like, all right, well, this is how long the season is. I'll see you afterwards and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like the feeling that I had after he disappeared at Acadia, like, was definitely different than other times where he might have gone off, where we didn't quite know exactly his plan. This just had a feeling like a very unsettling, like this isn't right, like something wrong, like something's off here. But you're dealing with so much that you're not processing it in a rational way. And then you have the police who are like leading the investigation, or not even, it wasn't even an investigation, that's the wrong word, that were the leading like of this case or whatever. And so then you sort of follow their lead, and then it's like, as you say, like the time just kind of keeps going by, right? And then just
yeah, continues on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry the police butchered this whole fucking thing. And like, what was your dad's thoughts about the whole thing? Like when he got all the boxes and everything back, he probably just would have been like, well, I thought I'd get an itemized list or like something at least.
Yeah, we were so clueless at the time. Like we wouldn't have, I don't even know if we would have questioned that. Like I think we were just so like you just don't even know what's going on. Like it's just complete shock, and you're not thinking clearly. And like a lot of these logical things afterwards, like, oh wow, we should have taken pictures, we should have done all these things. You just don't think about at the time because you're just so blindsided, and you're not thinking with your logical mind, you're thinking with your like survival mind.
Well,
and
you don't know what to like. You don't know at that time. You're like, after time has passed, you've recapped everything in your brain. Like you're going over everything. Okay, like why didn't I do this? Because you didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
but now you have everything that's jumbling around, and you're like, okay, well, why the fuck didn't I do this? But
Yeah.
none of that's on you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like takes a very long time to, like you still do the what if, right? Like all of the what ifs, and then you feel, like, oh, what if I had not, like whatever, like not gone into Halifax that weekend? What if I was, because I would have been at the tower party, and would any of that change the outcome? Because you just realize like this timeline, which is really all we have, right? Everybody's timeline is like, okay, this led to that decision, and this led to him meeting that person, this led to him being out that night or whatever, which I always think something must have happened on Sunday night. But you just realize like, well, a lot of this stuff is out of your control, and then you just ask all of these like philosophical questions, like about like, are things just, is the person's time their time, is that their destiny? You start to really question a lot of stuff like that. But either way, it's like we still want to know. It's not like, for me, I can only speak for myself, like, I'm just not okay with kind of like not knowing where his remains are.
Like you're okay not knowing, kind of thing.
Well, no, I want to know. Like, I want to know.
So
Yeah.
I
Sorry, I did a double negative there, and I don't even like those very much. But yeah, like, I want to know. Like, it's not something I'm okay with. Yeah.
sorry,
It's,
I misheard you. That was on me. But no,
yeah.
I wanted to try to tie everything together because I know the audio was shit last episode, and that's on me. I'll take full fucking responsibility for that. So, but I mean, it was cool how like everything else worked out. Like Paul got to have his like memories of Kenley, and
Yeah.
and you probably got to hear some stuff that you never heard before, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was all very interesting, and yeah, just to and realize like Kenley's life was his life. It's not my life, it's his life, and I was, in his life for a certain amount of time and loved that part of my life. But, people leave our lives all the time, and then
They do.
a new chapter begins without that person. And
Yeah, no, I've also done that a bunch too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not easy to do, but you do it, right?
yeah,
Because you have to.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And a
Yeah.
lot of this stuff, like, you're not prepared for. And
Mhm.
that was, looking back at that time, or even now, it's still like, what do you do in this situation? Like, it's not as if we have any clue, like, where do you go? Like, luckily, I feel very lucky that Ron was able to make the film, Missing Kenley, and
Mhm.
that uncovered more than anything ever has in terms of the investigation. So he's
See,
been, yeah,
that's because shit was broadcasted and on TV and everything else. Because now we're like, okay, well, why didn't the police do this? Because, oh, well, let's go ask them because now they fucking have to do something. You know
yeah,
what I
but
mean?
they don't look at it that way.
Yeah,
I've
fucking idiots.
learned that there's no level of guilt or no level of pressure that will permeate their conscience. You know,
No, no,
it's not like they're staying up at night thinking about it.
no.
You know,
And
unfortunately, it's not like you see in the movies.
no, fuck. But no, yeah, I think we touched base on like we recapped a little bit on the last episode and everything too. Did you have time to listen to like the part that I did just myself or
I didn't. I'm
okay.
sorry.
Oh shit, I
It's
don't
on
care.
my it's on, active on my computer, which I'll listen to it right after this. But
Okay, no, I just wanted to see if
yeah,
I got everything like correct and whatnot because I know that did take me some time to piece together and then
yeah.
with my ADD and everything it might have took a little bit of time.
Oh, well, you've been doing a great job, Chris. So,
Oh, well,
but
I wanted
really appreciate it. And I mean, hopefully, maybe something will help. Maybe this will help. Maybe
to
somebody
see.
will
I
hear
hope
this, and
so.
I
Like
hope so.
there's a lot of stuff. Like I did a couple cases. Like there was June Hibbs that I've done, and she ended up like going missing or whatever, and her husband was like a shitty cop, and yeah, she went missing, and then one of my friends that I worked with told me about it, so I did the story, and then I found the Facebook group, kind of like how I did with Kenley's, and I joined that, and then Blair, Julia's or Julie, her son, had added me, and then we got to talking about the podcast. He had no idea that I did a podcast on it, and I missed like a couple street names or something, and maybe a date, but that was it. He said it was pretty like the most factual thing that he listened to, and we got to talking, and then he hopped on an episode, right? So this is like something that I never thought that I would get to doing, which is
Mm-hmm.
really cool.
Yeah.
And after his episode, like after that played, he actually got like two phone calls, and somebody told him like nothing major, but information that he didn't know about his mom's case. So
Amazing. Well, I hope that happens.
yeah, no, me too.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for your time to hop back on and everything too. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Kind of
Thank you.
now we get to hear you clearly now.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, thank you, Chris, and I'm sure we'll be in touch with,
No problem.
you
Thank
know,
you so much for your
other
time. You
things.
have a
So,
wonderful night.
okay, you too. Bye.
Thank you.
Twisted Tales.